The hell? And so, we come to the third and final part on this lecture about card games. Hopefully, it's been useful to everyone so far, and the end is in sight, so let's just get cracking. So we've talked about what card advantage is and what it means, as well as how you can gauge it and what the value of cards are and what plus you're getting. But now that we know the value of a card, how do we determine the worth of a card? It's all well to say, oh yeah, drawing 2 cards is definitely better than calling one, but what if that drawing 2 cards costs you 3 counterblast, but calling the unit only costs 1 soul blast? Well, this is where context becomes a big factor, because a deck such as Messiah, which can countercharge very easily, will value that counterblast a lot less than something like Dynexus, which has no countercharge outside of its heal triggers. So, hopefully today we're going to be able to go over exactly what you want to be paying for your pluses. It's good to look at some sort of baseline. Unfortunately, there is no baseline. The closest skill we can get to just say draw a card is probably Omega Full Glenios' Act skill, which only costs 1 counterblast, but also deals you 1 damage. And the fact that taking damage is actually a positive thing for Glenios is actually a wholly separate discussion. And on top of that, it's on a stride unit, and it should be pretty obvious that stride units are power budgeted differently to normal units. So let's look at something else. So power creep notwithstanding, drawing a card is roughly worth somewhere between 1 and 2 counterblast. You've got those grade 2 9Ks from a while back that have on-hit counterblast to draw a card. Pretty straightforward. But nowadays, you've got cards that draw a card for much less and do more. Something such as Chatura, Geralhawk, Grand Hogan. These cards are all really stupid. And power budgeting is a topic for another video, but it's just good for you that there are differences. So there are lots of factors that affect how worthwhile it is to draw a card, and how good some cards are at drawing you cards. In terms of card advantage, the worth of it is basically what you expect to be getting out of that card right now. So basically the resources you're investing for that card, will it pay itself off? So for example, in a deck that doesn't use very much counterblast, paying that 2 counterblast to deck search for a unit is actually really strong, because that's a card that you can use right now and you don't have much use for the rest of that counterblast. Whereas something that does use a lot of counterblast, you have to decide, okay, if I spend this counterblast right here to draw this card, is it going to be the same value as if I spend it on, say, getting another attack or lowering my opponent's Vanguard's power? This is a decision tree you have to make about what this card does for you right now and what that resource does for you right now. Resources itself will be another video for another time, but in economics you just have to appreciate this as an opportunity cost, which is, if I do this, I can't do that. You can't have both things at the same time. Some decks can, such as ZTB, they can have their cake and eat it, but that's because they're broken. More fair decks, you'll have to decide, is this worth spending on right now, and how much do I want to spend to get this card? One card I like to bring up as an example and talk about this sort of thing is Leofel. So up until recently, Leofel's been a pretty good choice for Luard decks. He's a nice staple, hits for numbers, and has a good skill that can maybe plus you. But is it a plus? Well, let's take a look. It's Soul Blast 1 and retire one of your units to draw a card. Now, naturally Shadow Paladin has a lot of ways of cheesing this cost. Things like units that call other units from play, like Raven, or units that have on death effects, like both of the Owls. If you sacrifice one of those, then it's all good. But here's the thing, Leofel itself is overall neutral. He sacrifices a unit and then draws you a card, so he converts what's a soft plus into a hard plus. It's actually Belial Owl that's giving you the plus altogether, because his plus is soft because he comes into play, does something, and then draws you a card, so he still replaces himself. But then the drawing card of the Leofel on top of that to replace the Owl, rather than the card that the Owl draws you, is the hard plus. Or something you call off of a Raven, for example. Raven will call 2 units, so you're basically getting 2 units for the price of 1, and that's the soft plus. And then Leofel converts that soft plus into the hard plus. So you're overall still just a +1, but the quality of it changes. And what Leofel's cost is, overall, Soul Blast 1. So you're paying Soul Blast 1 to convert a soft plus into a hard plus. If you think about it that way, his cost seems a lot more fair, and maybe the card's actually a little bit better. Of course, we're still not going to play it anymore because of the new support, but it's just to give you an idea of, this is the sort of cost you're looking at. Something like Raven or Owl doesn't cost anything, but they also don't give you as much. So it's just a case of, do I want to extend and go as far as calling the Owl so I can pay for the Leofel to get that plus, or am I happy with just the Owl and getting the soft plus off of that? I could throw out examples like these for a long time, but a harder point to spot is like, when does it not become worthwhile? A lot of these cards that we play nowadays in decks, we play because there's no decision tree involved. The less decision trees there are in a deck, the less mistakes you can make, the stronger the deck probably is, right? But then something like Blue Wave, you just have to think, is it correct to spend this Counterblast here or there? Because Blue Wave is quite Counterblast heavy, and as well as that, there's a lot of decision trees in Blue Wave. Do I use Gallias to enable Wave 4 because he lets me stack crits on something else, as in he works on his own? Or do I go for the Arsenal Fleet, who doesn't cost me a discarded card from hand, but makes me a lot less inflexible because I have to have another attacker or something like that? It's these are sort of trade-offs you have to make when you decide which plus is worth it and what resource expenditure is worth it. This is probably the hardest thing to develop as a skill because it doesn't involve just reading the situation at hand, it also involves planning a turn or two ahead and thinking, okay, this is the value it's giving me, but is it going to be worth it down the line? Am I going to get the mileage out of it down the line? Just because me drawing these two cards right now could be good, are those two cards going to keep me alive in my opponent's next attack phase? Or are they going to be able to kill the opponent during my next turn? Things like that, and it's a lot harder to plan that far ahead, especially when you've got the other factors to consider. I think this episode probably might be the least useful of all, and for that I'm sorry, but I think it's something that's very important that needs to be discussed when rounding off a discussion about card advantage and how you're going to approach it and how you're going to go for it in games. Hopefully you guys will thought about it a bit more. This is a rather light episode, but on the plus side it means that we're all done with this chapter for now, and we'll be back soon with your good old-fashioned unscheduled content. So that's a bit from me. Again, Zistral from YellowCard Vanguard. Thank you for watching, and as always, be sure to check out our social media links in the description below. Give us that like, subscribe to us. Anything you can do really helps our standing. We hope to have more content out soon. As always, if you click the bell button, you'll be notified. And other than that, I guess that's keep going as you have been. We'll see you next time.